our meeting today. Today we would like to discuss about the preferences. Now I would like to explain some basic, concept about the preferences. And last week I have asked you to listen to audio file talking about the preferences, and now I would like to play it again. So hopefully,
Imagine that you are at a restaurant for breakfast. You want something to drink.
So I would like to repeat it again in order to, try to understand, to catch up. And I also have read your talks, and I think you all understand the content of such speech in these audio files. However, next I will add some explanations regarding the formulations and the type of such sentence. So first of all, let's listen to this kind of.
But you are not sure what. When the server walks over to your table, he says,
"Let me help. Do you prefer coffee or tea?"
So let
you
me
answer,
prefer coffee.
"I prefer tea to coffee."
I prefer tea to coffee.
You just told the server about a general preference.
That is general
The
preference.
server then makes a few suggestions about the teas available. When we are given choices, there are special phrases we use to say which thing we like more than another.
This kind of
We
choices.
call these choices preferences. In our program today, we will show you how to use general and specific
So
preferences.
there are two types.
We have different phrases for each. To begin, let's look at general preferences.
What is general preference?
A general preference is something you like more as a whole. It is not tied to a specific event or time.
Just a kind of hobby.
It is simply a fact about your likes.
Or food
For
preferences.
example, you probably like one style of music more than another
The kind
style.
of the music like traditional.
And you like one kind of food more than another food.
Also food.
Phrases we
preferences.
usually use for general preferences are prefer and like better.
So that's prefer
They have the same meaning.
or like better.
Let's talk about the word prefer and hear the coffee and tea example again.
"Do you prefer coffee or tea?"
Do you prefer coffee?
Notice
or
that
tea?
the word or is used in the question form.
So this kind of
In
choice
the
or
answer, we
between
use the
two
preposition
options.
to or over.
"I prefer tea to coffee."
Tea to coffee.
"I prefer tea over coffee."
So but or
As
or
you
over
might
is
know,
the same
in
word.
English, when we answer a question, we do not usually answer with full wording.
Yeah, that is
If asked about a
when you
preference,
have a
you
conversation.
can simply
don't
name
have
the
to
preference like this.
answer incomplete.
"I prefer tea."
So you don't
Here
have
is
to
another
put it down.
example of a question and answer.
"Do you prefer living in the city or the suburbs?"
Do you prefer
"I
living
prefer
in the city
living in the city."
or suburb?
In American English, prefer is a little more formal, but still common enough to use in everyday speech. But Americans are more likely to use the phrase like better
Better,
when
like
talking with
better.
others.
But
We
it's
use
different
the
when you
word
use a
than
British.
after this phrase. Here is how we do that in a question and answer.
"Do you like tea or coffee better?" "I like tea better than coffee."
Which is better than coffee.
Again, when answering, we usually only name the preference.
I like
"I like tea better."
better. Don't
Here
forget
is
to
another
add better.
example of a question and answer.
"Do you like living in the city or the suburbs better?" "I like living in the city better."
Better. So
Notice
just
that
put better
in
at the
question
end of
form,
your answer.
the word better comes at the end of the question. Now let's turn to specific preferences.
So this is a
A
specific.
specific preference is something you like or want more at a given point in time,
So
either
any
right now
conditionals.
or in the future.
There is conditions.
We use the expressions would prefer and would rather to talk about such things. These phrases have the same meaning. Let's look at the phrase would rather. It is much more common in American spoken English than would prefer. For both phrases, we almost always use the short form of the word would with a personal pronoun. We call the shortened form a contraction. For example, the contraction of I would is I'd.
I'd. It's not
When would is contracted, it looks and sounds just like the letter D. Listen to the normal form and the contraction of would rather. With would rather, we use the word than in the response.
So there is comparison.
Would you rather go out or stay home? I would rather go out than stay home.
You have two options here.
I'd rather go out than stay home.
But it is about
Again, we
something you
usually
want to
only
do.
name the preference in responses.
I'd rather go out.
And if there is
Say
only
just
one
answer,
main
I'd rather
verb
go
after would rather, we do not say it 2 times. Here is an example.
Would they rather study French or English?
And the answer.
They'd rather study English.
They'd rather start.
Notice that the verbs go, stay, and study are in simple form, the basic form without to before it or any letters at the end.
It's kind of verb one.
After
without
would
two.
rather, we always use the simple form of verbs. Just like would rather, we can use would prefer to talk about specific preferences. But to Americans, would prefer sounds more formal, and we do not use it often in speaking. Here is an example of a question and answer.
Would you prefer to go out or stay home? I'd prefer to go out.
Note that when Americans do use would prefer, we usually only name the preference, as in the example. However, when the answer mentions both choices, Americans usually say it this way.
I'd prefer to go out than stay home.
It may take time for you to become comfortable with the sounds
Yes,
of the
sometimes.
contraction of
You need
would
time.
with personal pronouns.
Like would.
It helps
like
to
say
pay
would,
attention
then
to what
I'd.
comes after the d sound. If you hear the word rather or prefer afterward, then you know someone is telling you about a preference. And I could say a lot more on this subject, but I'd rather end it here. I'm Alice Bryant.
So I think we have heard about such conversations, and I believe you also have listened to the audio file that I have sent you in our result group. So today we would like to, dig deeper into the structures of the preference and the type of such a preference, and in what situations, in what condition we will use this. So let me give you this kind of examples. So when you are asked to about your music preference, for example, your passions in music, you may choose a different types. You may have something common for your hobbies, for your type of music. That's a very specific. And sometimes we could also divine the personality, the lifestyle of someone only through the music that he or she likes a lot. So, for examples, I provide here there are 5 types of music that you may hear later. So this one, for examples, when we listen to this one, I'm sorry, we will try to open it. I couldn't play it. Okay, just stuck here. Sorry. So if we have a particular preferences in music, I'm sorry, this is just an error. I'll try to restart it. This one. Just stop sharing first. Okay, I have to stop sharing that screen because when I try to play such a music, it becomes error. I will try to replay it again. Okay, this one, no, this one. Just wait, okay. Just sorry, sometimes just something unpredictable. So we'll try to, okay, I think it works now. So let's listen to some kind of music that it may your types or it may not at all. For example, if you just move to another country like in Malaysia, you may find many people don't like traditional Indonesian traditional music, for example. So it should be better to be, you know, flexible in your preferences. Okay, I'll try. Hopefully, it will be could be played now. So you may choose this. You may love to listen this. This is a traditional music, right? And but you know, not many people love traditional music. So, for example, if you are kind of, sometimes we call it millennial, for example, so you just feeling, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't like this kind of stuff. You know, this is for villagers, for people like obsolete people. But you know, sometimes also when we talk with Western people, they love it, our traditional music, and we also may love this type of music, for example, instead of traditional music. So for me, I love to listen to classic music, like instrumental music, like Beethoven and Mozart, for example, and Bach. So many kind of instrumental and classic music, but also not many people love to listen to. And then we also could listen, for example, to this one, or so there are many type of music preferences. This is a traditional music from Palembang, you know, that is quite specific for, and also some people from Zambia also are familiar with such kind of this music. This is a kind of the instrumental using only guitar. But you may also love kind of Western, for examples, like this music. So, like Mr. Scott sing this one. So it's depend on your sometimes your preference will may reflect your generations, your era, the time you live within. So it's very I'm sorry, I tried to decrease the volumes. So it's very specific. I believe that you may love this music instead of other like previous music like Minang or from Palembang, for example, or even like a classic music, instrumental music. Not so many people love it, but yeah, generally we consider that we have a very specific preferences, and therefore, in order to express of our preferences, we need to use the very correct structures different on what we want to express it by such a sentence we use. So now, okay, let's move to here. Previously, we have listened about explanations in audio files, and I believe you also have defined this kind of definitions. What is general preference and what is specific preferences? What is the general meaning refers to? So here we can define that actually if you talk about something that is our common like or our common hobby, and this is not tied to specific or even or time, like hobbies or put preferences like music preferences. You This is the basic of you, so it's very general. It is not depending on the time where do you or offer or you ask. For examples, today and tomorrow probably it is the same. You have the particular preferences in hobbies and food preferences and also music. So it's kind of something that part of your hobby, part of your daily preferences. And what is the specific? So specific that it's something like a given on time or situation that you are given on this one. So it could change, or it's kind of a conditional situations. It depends on such a situation when you are asked for such a preferences. So it's kind of different, both general and specific. So if someone asks you about your music types, or music style, or your even like clothes style, or even like hairstyle, it's kind of your general preferences, or kind of food that you like much, or kind of food that you don't like. That's kind of the general preference. But if you are asked for two kind of options for something that will happen today or tomorrow, like whether you'd like to stay in Indonesia or study abroad in USA, that's kind of specific because it depends on a given point in time. So let's start here for general preferences. So for the formulas, you see here, if you want to express something about your preferences in general, you may use this one. What is the function? Is to like something more than something else. So this is the functions, but the situations is in general situations when you talk about your hobby and your daily tendency. So you may use this formula, prefer plus noun to plus noun, or like before we have listened in the audio file, it could be also like this, like and better than. So you may use both this type, prefer to or like better than. So for example, I prefer biochemistry to genetics. So don't forget to put genetic, not then genetic. I prefer biochemistry to genetic. It means you tend to choose biochemistry instead of genetic. So prefer biochemistry to genetic. In other form, I like listening jazz better than. So you may use this one, like listening jazz better than singing dangdut. So both are biochemistry and genetic. This is noun, noun, and listening jazz also. You know, listening is not listen to, but listening is in this context of sentence is a gerund. So this is noun, listening jazz, and singing dangdut. So I like listening jazz better than singing dangdut. So it's kind of your general preferences. And when you are talking about specific preferences, you can see here, so you may use this formula. So I would like to emphasize about when you have to use such type of this preference. So it means to describe present and future preferences. So when you want to express about your preferences about preference or future, your future preferences in certain conditions, you don't express it in the first type of this one like a general, but this is the specific one. So here it's quite different with the previous. See here, I would prefer to go to Brisbane. So sometimes there is no another comparisons or options that you express in such situations. I would prefer to go to Brisbane, but there is no another options. And this one also another sentence, for examples, like in positive form, I would prefer to stay with you. So we don't have any given choices like I would like prefer to stay with you then blah blah blah. No, and then for the negative one here, that's quite you have to focus on this one. I would prefer. So if we want to transform this to be the negative sentence, we don't have put the not in wooden. It's not wooden. So you put not after prefer. I prefer not to stay. So still would prefer an infinitive. Infinitive is two plus but one. So infinitive. I would prefer to stay. I prefer not to stay. Or in interrogative sentence, would you prefer to stay? So would is you put it on in the prompt parts and then follow it by prefer to stay. So it's kind of when you want to describe it about your present or future preferences in certain conditions without any other options. Just use this one: would, prefer, and infinitives. But you may also express something that you want to do it, to want to do one thing more than another thing in the present or future. So it's quite different with this one. You don't have another choice. You just go to Brisbane, but not in many city and in other city, for example. And also you just prefer to stay with your friend, for example, with your parent instead of others. So there is no, but here, and we will talk about the situations we use these expressions: would prefer and infinitive plus rather than plus but one. So it is use it to express something to want that you want to do one thing more than another thing in the present or futures. So here, for examples, I would prefer to stay with my parents rather than go to abroad. So don't forget then this one infinitive after prefer. I would prefer to stay with my parents. So if you just express it like this in type 2, in this one specific, I would prefer to go to Brisbane, or I would prefer to stay with my parents. So this would be defined as something that your preference during the present situations or future situation without another given choice. And then this one different with different. So here you have two different options. You may stay or go to abroad. So you would prefer to stay with your parents rather than go to abroad. So this is how we use this type of preferences. And as the alternatives, instead of using only would prefer this poem, we may also, like you have heard from the audio file I provide to you, that you may use also the sentence would rather plus verb one, then and verb one. So it is but something, I mean, two different activities, two different kind of activities you want to choose. Would prefer or infinitive than verb one. So I would rather chat than call by phone. So chat, this is one. Would rather chat than call by phone. But if you use this type, prefer, then you have to put infinitive here to chat. So it's quite similar actually in the structures. Just only after prefer you use infinitive, but rather should be followed by the verb one. That's very simple. It's quite same in this. This is the alternative type of this. You want to describe about your preference in doing something, so it should be verb here. Something you want to do, your activity. It's not like this one. For example, this should be noun. This type one, the general one is noun, is not verb. So if you're asking about something like something you need, something you prefer, about the noun, you use the generals. Okay, so and this is the latest type. So there is also the type of expressions using would prefer plus object pronoun and infinitive. What is the functions of this type of expressions or preference is to describe of our preferences or your preferences for the actions of another person. So in this context, we are talking about our preferences, our expectations about another person's in the present or future. So here, for examples, I would prefer him to set up. It's not me to be set up, but it's not me prefer to set up, but I prefer him to set up. So this is about your preference about actions of another person's. It's a different perspective. The general preference and also the specific preference, including type 2 and type 3, should be by yourself, your preference. But for the fourth type 4, it describes of your preferences, your expectations about another person's. the actions of another person. So here, I would prepare him to set off. And I will also, in negative form, I would prepare him not to set off. Previously, don't put wouldn't. I would prepare him not to set off. And this one, would you prepare him to set off? So it's kind of different situations that you may define by your preferences. When you express something, you should express it in a correct one. If someone asks you about your opinion, your preferences, your expectations about another person, so you may use this one. I would prefer this lady, for example, to be, get out of my house, something like that. Your expectations about another, but it's quite different with this one. So okay, so this is actually the preferences uh is the expression, the simple expression that we use to. So just try to, I would like to repeat it again. So about general is something that you is, kind of your common life, that you used to. For example, your hobbies and your food preferences. And if you talk about general, it should be about a noun. So the context of the sentence is noun. It's not a kind of verb or something, your actions. See here, human. So this is a separate formula. But it's quite difficult for us to memorize about the formula, right? So in case of me, I don't like to remember this kind of a formula. So I would like to practice it using directly transforms every sentence into the paragraphs or into the conversations, like we have practiced it last week in using conditional sentence. So in the same way, when I learned about the preference itself, the formula is quite complicated, but try to understand about the context of such a type of this. So there are four different types. The type one, you use it, it's in expressions about your tendency or your hobbies, your common preferences. So it should be, it's not, there is no kind of verb here. Biochemistry, genetic, and prepare itself function as a verb here, as if it's a verb. And this one also, I like listening jazz. So better than, so you may use like or prepare. So prepare and like is function as verb here, but another word should be the compared word. Your preferences should be in nouns. So this is one should be in noun. Biochemistry, genetic, listening jazz, singing dangdue. Or for the type two, so type two here, the particular characters is, it should be verb. So prefer to go. So I prefer tea. It's different. It should be your general types. But if you said I would prefer to go to Brisbane, so prefer follow it by the verb, by infinitive, two plus verb one. So I would prefer to. This kind of specific, indicators. If someone asks you to define what kind of this preferences, whether it's general preferences or the specific preferences describing by the presence or your future preferences, you just focus on whether that preferences is about the noun or it is about something you want to do, the activity. So like go is a kind of the verb, but tea, for example, or coffee, that is kind of noun. And remembers that for the type 2, if you use would prefer to go to Brisbane, you don't mention, there is no another options, like I would prefer to go to Brisbane than Bali, for example. So it should be this type. I would prefer to go to Bali rather than Jakarta, rather than go to Jakarta, for example. So it's a comparison between two kind of activity. This one, this activity, to stay, or this one, go, to stay or go. It's different with the previous one. It's only to go to Brisbane. This in this type you have two different options. And also remember the particular characters for the type 4 is about describing of your preference about another actions of other people. For example, yeah, if you had someone, if you have your boyfriend, for example, or your girlfriend, or even your best friend, for example, you expect him or her to act as you want to, you expect it as your expectation, for example. So you use this one. So just previously, for example, I would prefer my best friend to stay with me. So in this context, that is your expectation that your best friend uh, or is expected to stay with you. But in you know, in a particular situation, that actually in real situations, that probably your best friend is not staying with you. So remember, when you transform of this preference in sentence, this you may use not is after this one, after the indicator of preferences, not put in the wooden. If you put not after would, it should be a kind of negative sentence in another form, like in present, as perfect, simple, past perfect, for examples. So, close. I think that's all that I want to share with you. I will share this letter, this slide letter, so you could remember about it, and then you could learn about it. And for since that this the last time for us meeting in this class, probably in this lecture, in the subject basic English lessons, and we may we may make some in next semester, for examples, in another lectures, but I'm not sure going with lectures, but hopefully that we can make, for example, in fifth semester or third semester. Or fourth semester, we can make another lectures like in developmental biology, and also in or animal physiology. So I really hope that you know, got your motivations, your sub motivations to improve your English by doing it, by practice it every day, because you still have a bunch of time, yeah, until you graduate, since you are younger. And yeah, you have a bunch of free time, and also the opportunity to reach to improve your ability in speaking the foreign language. I know that in common that, or based on our interactions during these lectures, I noticed that actually your English are better, but still in my uh, common experience, in my previous experience, that better is not, you know, in English, because you have to be you know, excellence in speaking, excellent in writing and reading itself, and also try to, you know, express everything in English and practice it every day based on your you know, topic that you learn. So then you will be very very you know, proficient, and you know, you will notice your own improvement. So I think that's all. And next, for the next, you will probably next week or 2 weeks later, we will have a final exams. And to me, the final exams, probably there are two kinds, maybe like a direct interaction through the Zooms, like face to face, like this, or probably I just provide the question through the online platform, like through iLearn. So okay, just wait about the further information, so I would like to share with you. But in my question, probably yes, it's about the preferences and conditional sentence, and how we use such a sentence, and how we could transform the type of conditionals from the type 1 to type 3, for example, different on such situations. And I also would like to provide the script of conversations, and therefore you will understand the context of such a such a sentence, and then you will define whether such sentence is correct or not in it used in such transcript. And also like our topic like today, we are talking about the preferences. So I may provide the questions about, provided in kind of descriptions or even in conversation. Then you will define whether such a sentence, like the response of such questions in the in the conversations is correct or not. That's kind of the situations that you will face in your final exams. And yeah, I consider to also take a direct examination with you, like making conversation through this online meeting. Just be prepared, okay? Thank you very much. I think so. This is the last meeting. Thank you very much for your participations, for your contributions in our understandings about the conditional sentence and also about the preferences. And thank you for submitting your talks on time. And I believe that you have a great motivations, and hopefully that you will get also a greater mark this because this is your first time getting final exams in university. And it is, yeah, sometimes it's quite different, like the final exams in your previous schools, like senior high schools, because you will be assessed in many ways, not only through your final exam itself, but sometimes your participations in the class, and also about your manner. Thank you very much. I think that is the end of our meeting. I'm so sorry if something that out of your expectations during our lectures, and hopefully that we met again in another lectures, another opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.